what I love the library for, because I didn't have to spend a dime. We love it. All vibes, no plot. Don't listen to the voice on the phone. Like, it's really not that difficult. Strange stuff happens. Hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Casual. For those who are new here, we are so glad to have you here today. We are here in a new location with a new fixation, okay? Might as well just call this the hyperfixation channel. I have been going through some health problems which have required a lot of staying away from screens. So I haven't been able to edit as much as I've wanted. I have so many gaming videos just sitting on my hard drive because I couldn't really look at them to edit them for as long as it takes to edit a gaming video. Hours and hours of sitting and recording, looking at the screen, and then editing, looking at the screen, and then making an Instagram reel or a TikTok, also looking at a screen. It's just a lot. So I had to find new things to do. For those who know me in real life, I'm a woman of many hobbies, we'll just say. And my newest one that I've gotten into is reading. I was always a reader. I read so much as a kid because the rule in our house was that we couldn't watch TV unless it was the weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that left a lot of free time during the week. But as I got older, you know, required reading became a thing. So I didn't really like to read. I didn't seek it out. I didn't choose it for myself as I got older, especially in college. There was always something else to do in college. With having this health issue, I haven't been able to do my normal screen activities. For example, there was an entire week where I had to minimize all screens. And do you know how many screens there are? Do you know how many screens that we use on an everyday basis? I got desperate. So I ended up going to the library. Not all at once. I did not get all of these books at once. I wanted options, and since October just ended, a lot of these were from spooky recommendations that I found on BookTube before I was able to, you know, not watch the screens. So I'm really glad that I watched so many of those videos beforehand because I already had the books. And my library is fines free, so I'm able to guilt-free get so many and not have to worry about, you know, returning them exactly on time. Being a mood reader, sometimes I'll just get a bunch because I'm like, that sounds interesting. And then I may or may not read them. I might decide, oh, I'm not in a fantasy mood, so I just take the fantasy books back. I'll take a picture on my phone, be like, did not read, borrow again. These are the ones that I am planning on reading before I return. I split them up in quite a few categories. We have literary fiction, spooky, so that includes like horror and thriller because I'm not always good at differentiating between the two, romance, and fantasy. I will say I love thrillers and like spooky books, so there's gonna be the most of those, so I'll go through the others first. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have read any of these, if you have any books that you'd like to recommend or that you'd like to see me read and talk about. And I've spent a lot of money on these books. These are the library books, but these books I've spent a lot of money on, so I kind of want to share them with you guys. But anyway, let's get into the books. This is gonna get really annoying. I'm so used to having everything set up in my office for my gaming videos because it's all like kind of a permanent setup. So all I have to do is sit down, record, maybe turn some lights on. This is new for me. Firstly, we'll start with literary fiction because it's the smallest section. Some of the others kind of blend between genres. I tried to separate them as best as I could. So the first is we have The Museum of Failures by Thridi Umrigar. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. It's such a beautiful cover. I'm gonna say that a lot. When it comes to literary fiction, a lot of times I tend to go towards like emotionally centric, family centric, something that's gonna make me feel something. Because in the other genres, I'm getting, you know, spooked by a thriller or confused by a mystery. The main character, Remy, and he kind of falls out with his mother after they both moved from India to the States. his mother gets sick. He doesn't realize how sick she actually is, and then he starts contemplating, you know, life and the meaning of family and love and regret and all of that. Surprising, devastating, and ultimately a story of redemption and healing still possible between a mother and a son. Museum of Failures. The only downside about the library is that everything has a glossy cover except for the 2 paperbacks that I have. The rest are hardbacks with glossy covers. That's gonna make filming a nightmare, so we're just gonna go with it. The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. I read The Lost Apothecary by her, and I really liked the different timelines, how they all mixed together, the story that she was telling through, you know, oh, her husband cheated on her, but she's gonna continue her life and like get back to who she is as a person without him. It's about the occult, but it's still in 1873, so it still is a historical literary fiction. It has a bit of spookiness, it has a bit of suspense, but I'm excited to see what she can do with a different type of story. And then the last in the literary fiction, like I said, don't have that many, is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Everybody and their freaking mother is talking about this book. She a thick boy. Like, this is insane. It's like, well, it's actually really not. It's what, 400 pages? Yeah. So that's really not that thick. But it just feels really thick. It feels like a brick. But I'm very excited to read this. It has to do with 2 kids that meet in a hospital, and then they kind of grow up together. They bond over their love of video games, and then as they grow up, we see them work together and kind of their family from there. And then next we have romance. We have Catherine Center's new book, Hello Stranger. I read The Bodyguard by her and I really liked it. It's very quirky, we'll say that. Very rom-com. This book is a little bit different from her other one. It has to do with this girl is an artist and she is in a big competition and she has an accident and then gets facial blindness. So she's not able to paint the portraits that she normally does. So kind of her having to figure out what to do, if that's gonna be something going forward that she can work through. I like to mix fantasy or rom-coms into the middle of my thriller books or my spooky books, because then it can go from like a really intense to a really light to a really intense to a really light, you know, that kind of thing. And then I have 2 from Tessa Bailey. So it's Make Me and Chase Me. And there's one more in this set. They're called the Broke and Beautiful trilogy, but my library didn't have the 3rd one, Need Me. Tessa Bailey are spicy. If you haven't read anything by Tessa Bailey, if you hadn't read anything by Tessa Bailey, know in advance, real spicy. And sometimes you want that, you know? You want them to chase each other all over New York City, or you want them to be friends, break the friend zone type thing. We have another historical romance in The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I also have another book by her in this stack, but it's in the thriller, mystery, spooky section. I've been told, in contrast to the title, that this is mostly a romance, a historical romance, and to go into it with that context instead of it being a more action, supernatural thriller type book. I haven't read anything by her. I'm excited to try it. And vampires. Fun. The next I have is an author that I've never even heard of before, which is what I love the library for, because I didn't have to spend a dime. We love it. It's called Indigo Isle by T.I. Lowe, and this is about a recluse who lives on his island and he just wants to grow and make indigo dye. And the town kind of ostracizes him, so he becomes like a hermit. Story of redemption and the town's expectations and his own grief kind of keeping him away from everyone. And then the last romance that we have is 5 Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand. Never read an Hildebrand before. It just looked like the perfect palette cleanser between all the spooky books that I have. I am excited to have that little bit of summer at the beginning of winter. you know? The next we have is fantasy. There's quite a bit more books in this stack, but it'll make more sense because some of the books go together. The first two that we have are the Once Upon a Broken Heart and Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I have read the Caraval trilogy and loved it and wanted to get into these before the third book came out. It's already come out, so now I have these to be able to jump right into that third one. We also have, kind of going along the same circus realm, we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I have heard this book is all vibes, no plot. Sometimes you want that. I don't think I've read a book like that, so I'm excited to see what it's about. Next we have Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I read The House Has Good Bones, I think it's called, by them, and I really liked it. This has much more of a fairy tale fantasy style to it instead of it being more on the spooky side, but I think it is a little bit darker. Ooh, Mara never wanted to be a hero. What a sentence! Fairy godmothers, witches, princes. We love to see it. Next, we have House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. I have never read anything by this author. It is a YA fantasy, which I don't normally read, but I'm excited to kind of see what it's about. Carrie can read, recommended this. Really don't know much about it other than I think it's got something to do with the ocean. Stephanie Garber does a blurb on the front, so we'll see. A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is more of a folk fairy tale type retelling fantasy, and it has to do a lot with the elements and with, you know, a village coming together against someone, I believe. This is the same author that wrote Divine Rivals, which everybody raved about. This one has been a lot more divisive, so I kind of wanted to see if I liked this type of folk fairy tale story. The next is an impulse grab that I just saw on the shelf, thought the cover was beautiful. It's called Marvelous by Molly Greeley. It, from what I can tell, is a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling mixed with like a Phantom of the Opera style. It's a historical fantasy that has to do with 1547 French royals. Beautiful 17-year-old girl whose merchant father has fallen hard times and offers his daughter to Queen Catherine. The queen will pay his debts and his daughter will marry Monsieur Sauvage. And that's Pedro, and he's covered in hair. Mercilessly ridiculed for the hair covering his body from head to toe. Beauty and the Beast. French royals. We love to see it. And then the last in the fantasy category is the rest of the books in the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire. So we have In an Absent Dream, Come Tumbling Down, Across the Green Grass Fields, Where the Drowned Girls Go. And there's another one called Lost in the Moment and Found, which I don't know where that goes in the series. It doesn't really necessarily, it's not the last one, it's a standalone in the same world. So I don't know where to put this. I guess I'll read it at the end. If I should read it at a different point in the series, definitely let me know down in the comments below. I have read the other beginning of this series and I really liked it. It's a very interesting concept, and you'll love that the books are so short that you're able to just like blow through them, you know? I love to see when it comes to these really thick fantasies or these really thick spooky books that there's kind of just this is not a fun time, because they tend to be on the darker side. Something that's a little more fantastical but shorter. The next section that we have is the spookies. There's so many of them. I'm just gonna kind of run through them and be like crime thriller or spooky or haunted dolls or whatever. The first we have a couple by the same author, and I have been going through this author's backlog and trying to get through them, and some of them I've liked, some of them I haven't really liked as much. But first we have Final Girls by Riley Sager, The House Across the Lake, and The Last Time I Lied. I have already read Final Girls. My favorite book by Riley Sager by far 100% is Home Before Dark. I've also read Lock Every Door and Survive the Night, and I also own The Only One Left. It's back here on the shelf. But I love the way that he writes. Even if I don't like a book, it's because of like the choices the character makes or the way that the story progresses, not because of the way that he writes, because I really actually love the way he writes. Next, we have the other Isabel Caña's book, The Hacienda, Arranged Marriage, The Mexican War of Independence, another historical, kind of spooky. I've read Mexican Gothic by her and I thought it was amazing. It's a marriage of monetary value and she starts to work on the house and the house doesn't like it. That's pretty much it. We also have The Vicious Circle by Catherine St. John. I loved this cover. This was another impulse grab. The Perfect Paradise or A Perfect Nightmare. Ooh. New York City to Mexico to pay her respects and finalize her uncle's will. Seemingly beautiful place turns vicious quickly. The next we have a more crime novel. We have The Angel Maker by Alex North. I'm trying to find books that have very prolific authors, not like a James Patterson prolific level, that have more to read, like a Riley Sager, so I can just continue to read and see what else I like by that author. And then my camera died. I'm having a time with this video, I tell you what. Angel Maker, crime novel, Alex North. Next we have two by the same author as well, A Twisted Love Story and For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. This is about a prep school where the principal will do anything to keep his reputation in the clear. And then the next, A Twisted Love Story, is a couple who gets bored with their marriage, so they decide to start killing people. We love to see it. Nothing puts a couple more in the dangers of modern dating than if they can stick together, they can survive anything, even the tightening net of a police investigation. I think I've seen this Criminal Minds episode. The next we have a book called Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. Look at that cover. Gorgeous. Lexi talked about this book. I love her. I've been going through her entire backlog of years of videos. This island, stuck in the 90s, spooky shit starts to happen. We love that. And then we have The Boy Who Drew Monsters by Keith Donahue, which also spooky cover. This book is a little bit shorter. From the New York Times bestselling author The Stolen Child comes a hypnotic literary horror novel about a young boy trapped inside his own world whose drawings blur the lines between fantasy and reality. Ooh. Also, this was a total impulse grab as well. It's called The Night House by Joe Nesbo. Look at that cover. I don't really know what this is about. It just says a chilling fresh spin on the classic horror novel. Parents' tragic deaths in a house fire, classmates are disappearing, unreliable narrator. Don't listen to the voice on the phone. Like, it's really not that difficult. We also have The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. This is a more domestic thriller horror about a pair of twin sisters who one of them is trying to get pregnant and the other one has a terrible dark secret. We love it. This is my first book by Stephen Graham Jones. This is called My Heart is a Chainsaw. I literally have no idea what this is about other than it says My Heart is a Chainsaw. Like, what is that title? I love that. You won't find a more hardcore 80s slasher film fan than high school senior Jay Daniels. Ugh, we love to see it. See what you've got, what it takes. See if your heart too might be a chainsaw. We love it. I love it. Another new author for me is Scott Carson, and this is called Where They Wait. Another spooky cover. Below the white noise of a meditation app, something sinister lurks. Something that knows your name. Ooh, this is more investigative journalist stumbles onto supernatural stuff. Yep. And then we have a book called Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I've heard that this is pandemic wipes out the world. What does the world look like now? Following groups of people as they try to kind of figure out their new spot, new place in the world socially, and also spooky stuff happens. The next we have The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. This is a chunky boy. It has spooky dolls, a past that haunts them. Maddie was a little girl making dolls in her bedroom when she saw something she couldn't have and is trying to remember that lost trauma by making haunted sculptures. We also have The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. Another beautiful cover. I love to see it. When ghosts talk, she will listen. Ropa dropped out of school to become a ghost stalker, and now she speaks to Edinburgh's dead, carrying messages to those they left behind. The Sixth Sense meets Stranger Things in this sharp contemporary fantasy following a precocious and cynical teen as she explores the shadowy, magical underside of modern Edinburgh. And then we have by Clemence Michelon, sorry if I say that wrong, The Quiet Tenant. I saw this in a Barnes and I almost bought it. I was this close, and I was just like, no, I'm sure I can find it at the library. I did. A pulse-pounding psychological thriller about a serial killer narrated by those closest to him. His 13-year-old daughter, his girlfriend, and the one victim that he spared. I thought that was such an interesting narration style, and I really hope that it lives up to my expectations in that regard. I have another one called Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier? When Paris Peralta is arrested in her own bathroom, covered in blood, holding a straight razor, her celebrity husband dead in the bathtub behind her, she knows she'll be charged with murder. Because the only thing worse than a murder charge is the dark personal history that Paris will do anything to keep hidden. We have Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. Thought this was really cool. I thought it was a YA, but it's not. Amanda and Clay head out to a remote corner of Long Island expecting a vacation, a quiet reprieve from life in New York City, quality time with their teenage son and daughter, and the taste of the good life in the luxurious home they've rented for a week. But with a late night knock on the door, the spell is broken. Apparently the world has ended. TV, internet's down, there's no cell service, new relationships forged in moments of crisis. Next, we have The September House by Carissa Orlando. I have never read anything by her. I've heard that this book is a little bit disappointing, so I'm not entirely jazzed about reading it as much as I was, but it seems like it'll be, you know, kind of a camp horror, little bit of more fun, doesn't take itself too seriously type book. It's about a haunted house. The house becomes extra uber haunted in September, and this woman is trying to convince the house to help her rebuild her relationship with her daughter, is what I kind of surmised. Next, we have 5 Survive from Holly Jackson. This is her newer release. I've never read anything by Holly Jackson before. She writes mostly YA. She wrote The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, that whole series, which I'm excited to read if I do like this. This is about 6 friends in an RV, 8 hours, 6 friends, 5 survive. What else do you need? You know, somebody's gonna die in the RV, and we don't know who, and we don't know why. And then the last, we have The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. If anybody's seen the new Paramount Plus Paranormal Activity that came out about the about the devil-possessed small village, but that is what this reminds me of. This reminds me of that so much, and I wanted to be able to read more kind of along those lines. The Blair Witch Project meets Midsommar in this brilliantly disturbing thriller from Camilla Sten, an electrifying new voice in suspense. They are not alone. They're looking for the truth, but what if it finds them first? Come find out. Ah, I love that. It's like a film crew goes into this lost village where an entire family disappeared, and she's like related to them somehow, so she wants to kind of figure out her own family's history. She takes in the camera crew. Strange stuff happens. There's a lot of books here. You know, we have a lot to go through. Let me know down in the comments if there's any that kind of pique your interest, if there's any that you've read yourself, any future recommendations that you guys have. With that, I will leave you to your reading. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Support your local library, and happy reading.